What's up? Okay, well, this is just a regular old blog. It's not poetry. It's not me goofing around on my guitar. This is just me and random mindlessness. Okay, so first on the agenda, why? Why is it that the person who always has the most to say just can't ever seem to say it? I'm usually that person. Unless it comes out in a written blog or it comes out in my poetry or right now as I'm talking to you people on this camera. Always have so much fucking shit to say. Uh, I bottle it up and I don't express it and I don't share it with people. My viewpoints on so many different things. Censorship. Censorship fucking sucks, okay? There's certain extents to where censorship is important, but before I ramble on, let's make this more fun. Let's do this like John Malkovich, because everything that comes out of John Malkovich's mouth is precise and pronunciated properly. So we're going to make this exchange between the two of us more interesting by my enunciating everything that I say. Censorship sucks. There are certain examples in which case censorship is important. When you have kids, like I do, censorship is important to a degree. You should censor certain things that your kids see, but you shouldn't censor everything. Like when I was growing up, my mom let me listen to whatever kind of music I wanted to. I went through my rap phase, I'll admit it. Fat Boys, Run DMC, DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, Kool Moe Dee, KRS-One, um, bunch of others. Ice-T, Public Enemy, and then NWA when they came out. My mom didn't care what I listened to. My stepdad, on the other hand, grew up in the South, so he was very racist. I mean, this is a guy who called I hate to use the phrase, please don't take offense anyone that watches this, but he used to call Soul Train Jigaboo Caboose. Now, I don't agree with any of that at all. I grew up in apartments. Apartments are like melting pots. And yeah, I had East Indian neighbors, and I had Korean neighbors, and I had Chinese neighbors, and I had Native American neighbors, and Mexican, and all kinds. It just, I had friends that were from all different spans of the globe in their ethnicity. So I didn't know what it was like to be racist or prejudiced. So when I came across it, it blew my mind. I didn't know what the hell it was. And then when people found out that I was German, oh well, then they just assumed that I must be racist, that I must be a Nazi fucking dick, that I don't like people. Well, if I don't like you, I don't like you because I don't like you. Not because of your skin color, not because of your race, not because of your sexual preference, not because of your religion, none of that. If you give me reason not to like you, then I won't like you. Otherwise, it's off the board. But I rambled on, went off the subject. We were on censorship. Um, Back in 1985, Tipper Gore and a bunch of the Washington wives got together and they started the PMRC. The PMRC decided that it was important to censor the music that our children listened to. Well, their children, which was us. And they thought that it was so important for us to be censored from that because it was damaging to us. It would warp our minds. It would cause us to do things like the Columbine massacre or something to that effect. Comes years later, or commit suicide, as Ozzy Osbourne was once accused and acquitted of. Judas Priest accused and acquitted. Metallica accused and acquitted. None of those things stuck, but yet people still try to say that heavy metal, especially heavy metal, is just the most horrible thing in the world. It's devil's music. It's just fucking, it's evil and it's twisted, and all they sing about is serial killing and murder and death and blood. And like, okay, well, did you forget about Motley Crue? Oh no, then let's forget. There's the other side of it that's not all violence and blood and gore. Then there's the sex and drugs and the rock and roll. Well, that's part of what makes rock and roll, right? I mean, Elvis Presley in 1957, he was an example of sex and rock and roll. Not so much the drugs until, again, to like the late 60s, early 70s, started taking painkillers and all that shit. But I'm sure he probably did his fair share of, a little bit of dubage. And, well, we all know Elvis was fond of the drink. So I guess in that aspect, you could say Elvis was right there with sex, drugs, and rock and roll, too. As was Jerry Lee Lewis, the Big Bopper, Chubby Checker. The list goes on. I mean, you cannot classify a music and say that it's evil and not trace it back to its roots and say, okay, well, if that was evil, then why wasn't this evil? It doesn't work. But I don't know. Censorship is just wrong. People shouldn't do it. It's not right. It's damaging to the kids. I don't censor anything with my daughter. I'm a huge anime fan, and I watch original Japanese animation, uncut, uncensored, unedited, with my daughter, and I let her see all this stuff. And I'll point out to her. She says, "Daddy, those are boobs." I'm like, "Yeah, those are boobs." But it's not something to be ashamed of. I don't want you going around naked. You know better than to run around naked with no clothes on, because there is some level of modesty that's needed. Not shame, but modesty. And I think that this country is just screwed up in that aspect. I mean, I'm proud to be American. I'm a proud American as much as anybody else is. Patriotic. I support my troops. I don't support the cause in which they're over there. I support them. Okay? Because the cause that they're over there is because of George fucking Bush. And that has nothing to do with the troops. The troops are just following orders. Okay? In some cases, that may be blindly, but they are still just following orders. I have nothing against that. And I try to instill as much value as I can in my daughter and teach her the difference between right and wrong. I taught her how to defend herself. I didn't teach her to defend herself so she could go beat people up. I taught her to defend herself so that if the need ever arose that she needed to protect herself, that she could, and that she wouldn't have to go running to somebody else. People's values in this country sorely slipped since I was a kid. I mean, yeah, granted, the 80s was the age of decadence and everything, and, there was all this coke flowing around everywhere, and everybody had to have the biggest house and the fanciest car and all this other shit. And we're right back in the middle of it again, here in the 2000s. This is the 80s all over again. I keep telling people this. Oh, look, the Transformers came back. He-Man came back. Next thing you know, G.I. Joe came back. All this shit from the 80s. Things that I loved and I adored and have been totally warped and twisted and not the same anymore. People just need to wake up and realize what's going on. Take stock of what's going on in your world and make note of it. Because the only way anything's ever going to change is if people notice it and they're willing to fix it. And they don't walk around blindly like the sheep that they usually are and just take it as it comes. Well, I've said my piece for today. Maybe I'll have another one later. Okay? Talk to you later.